Welcome back, YouTube, to the channel Invest in Yourself. My name is Cameron, and today we're going to talk about Nvidia stock and the upcoming possible ARM acquisition. If you haven't heard, SoftBank is set to sell the UK's ARM holding to the US chip company Nvidia for more than $40 billion, supposedly. Multiple people direct knowledge of this matter said a cash and stock takeover of ARM by Nvidia may be announced as soon as Monday, and the SoftBank will become the largest shareholder in the U.S. chip company overall. The takeover values ARM about $32 billion price that the SoftBank paid for the business in 2016. While Nvidia is paying more for the asset that SoftBank did, the price also reflects the scale of ARM's underperformance under the Japanese group's ownership overall. Nvidia had a market valuation of roughly similar to that of ARM's at the time of the 2016 deal, but now trades with a market value of $300 billion plus, or roughly 10 times the amount of SoftBank paid in cash for the ARM back in 2016. This time around, by paying for these large portion of the deals with its own shares, it's also passing the part of the risk of the transaction to SoftBank for Nvidia. So 3 things today we're going to cover, YouTube, in this video with the acquisition of ARM for Nvidia. 1, what does the Nvidia gain with the ARM acquisition? And 2, how will the ARM acquisition affect competition? And will the deal be allowed to even happen? And 3, will I buy more? And kind of give you an overall synopsis of what I'm thinking and what possibly could happen here in the next couple weeks. So let's get into it. The deal, YouTube, would almost give overnight dominant role for Nvidia in this lucrative business of providing chips to smartphones like the Apple's iPhone overall. It would also make the company a more formidable competitor to Intel as same chip makers begin to adapt ARM designs in servers and PCs. Apple this year said it was ditching its Intel processor from the Mac and in favor of more efficient integrated chips based on the ARM technology overall. If you're not tracking what Nvidia does as a business, go back and check some of my previous videos going in detail of the business overall Nvidia. But in the short sense, they're just a fast-growing company player whose chips are used to run the intense calculations for graphics cards and play key roles in video gaming, cloud computing, and other activities for which the coronavirus pandemic has stoked demand, and that it has sent shares up more than 100% this year, making it a best performing stock, or one of the best performing stocks in the S&P 500. And with ARM designs, if you're not tracking, YouTube, they design microprocessors that power most of the world's smartphones. By joining forces with Nvidia, combined with the company, would be a powerhouse in the chip industry. ARM is not a chip maker, but licenses its chip designs to different customers, including Apple, Samsung, and Intel. Its chip architect is widely used in mobile, and per its licensing ships billions of chips for everything, including phones, tablets, Internet of Things sensors. Should a deal cut together, it would be one of the largest transactions so far this year, and potentially the largest semiconductor deal ever. Thought the business disruption stemming from the pandemic have dented global deal volume, consolidation has kept up the pace in the semiconductor industry as chip makers seek scale and expand their product portfolios to support the increasing number of everyday items that are connected to the internet. Just wrapping up this first part here in the video with Nvidia gaining from the ARM acquisition. Basically, in a short sense, it's going to take this company from just morph them in from just a normal microchip producing company or a developer, morph them into a software company overall, and it's just going to open so many different avenues from which Nvidia can get their company, get their foot in the door and start creating different aspects, especially when it comes to AI and Internet of Things, when it comes to the acquisition of ARM. And we'll get in more to it in the video, and we're going to go on to the second part. So as I was making this video, YouTube, press release came and it's confirmed that Nvidia is acquiring 100% with this $40 billion premier computing company with ARM, and it's going to be the age of AI, they're saying, overall. But going back to part 2 of the video, Nvidia gains with how will Nvidia with the ARM acquisition affect the semi sector, and will the deal be allowed to happen overall when it comes to like antitrust? Nvidia gains the ability to control the source code of ARM. If y'all are not tracking, it's arguably the most popular CPU architect on the planet in terms of volume. Now the deal is going down. This is going to be an epic shift that has implications for the entire tech industry. A partial list of companies affected will include Intel, AMD, Qualcomm, Apple, and even every other smartphone manufacturer in the world. When it comes to PC manufacturers, Dell as well, Taiwan Semiconductor and other fabs, and thinking of Amazon too as a cloud provider. Nvidia makes chips and competes with other chip makers, as we know, as they have been for years. And so these chip makers and everyone I've already mentioned and more would then become highly dependent on Nvidia for key pieces of IP, without which large portions of their business go up in smoke. So Nvidia would have a huge market shifting powers against their own competitors should the deal go. Now the deal is going through. You have to forgive me, YouTube. I had some of this stuff written down, but since we know now it's going through, but the question I have, since they're going to be holding this key piece of, this algorithm, or this key piece of, architecture through ARM, are they going to end up licensing it to like AMD? Because, AMD is their number one GPU competitor. And if they decide to make ARM data center chips, as many have speculated they're already doing, would they license these competing chips to other manufacturers? So, the question I have is, even if this deal goes through, it may come with a consent decree of similar that limits what they can do, Nvidia overall, YouTube. There's much uncertainty surrounding that, and this is why SoftBank is in such a tough position here. And I think they're going to put limitations on Nvidia depending what the contract comes about and what stipulations they're going to put in Nvidia. But the reported price of as you can see, 40 billion is 13% of Nvidia's very inflated market cap, now hovering around 80 times market share. They have almost 800 billion in debt currently, including leases, and about 11 billion in cash and short-term investments. But I can't imagine that Nvidia is not anticipating a long drawn-out review by the Justice Department that ends up in some way restricting exactly what they can do with their new $40 billion acquisition. And that's why I'm already figured into their thinking overall. And this is just crazy that I'm making this video overall and it's been confirmed. But again, YouTube, this is wrapping up this part of the video of how the ARM acquisition now is going to affect, and will the deal have stipulations into it, and what Nvidia can do when it comes to dealing with other manufacturers. Let's roll into the last part of the video. So wrapping up this last part, YouTube, I'm just kind of going off the rip here since a lot of this news has changed since making this video. And the last part here, will I buy more shares, and what do I think about the acquisition now it's taken place, and what can I expect before, what can we expect before the end of the year, YouTube? Nvidia stock is a fantastic performer in the tech space, and Nvidia does not have a sense of complacency whatsoever with a lot of their disruptive technology advances they have in the last couple of years, and when it comes to acquiring different companies to boost this company, through the future, and keep on striving and being that number one player in the semiconductor and software company now in the near future. And the semiconductor firm has put many strengths and is putting industry bigwigs like Intel and AMD on notice. A big thing I think is when Apple's decision to replace Intel's x86 architect with ARM, it's big, it's huge, it's momentous. And this transition now being successful, there's no reason and a doubt in my mind that Intel will likely lose a lot of market share to Nvidia. Overall, going to help us as Nvidia shareholders to boost up that stock price and that market capitalization price overall. Acquiring ARM is going to be a great move, and when it comes to diversifying its operation, it's going to end up entering the smartphone, and buying ARMs, for Nvidia will break in through all of the microchip for the smartphone manufacturers as well for Nvidia. In my opinion, it has more an aggressive approach than Intel, which is using excess cash for share for buybacks. I'm not against share buybacks, YouTube, but since they are an effective method of returning capital to investors, but I struggle to understand why Intel would not want to build more infrastructure or invest in a new business. Nvidia stock is not cheap by any means, YouTube. I understand the share has a trailing price, earnings ratio of 94, but that doesn't mean that it can't climb in the future. You know, if Nvidia, with this ARM now, this deal going down, it's going to lead to increased cooperation between companies overall. That deal with this ARM software and this ARM company that now Nvidia owns, so they're going to hold like this golden ticket that they're going to end up having to work with other competitors that they deal with day in and day out. Nvidia stock has been an excellent investment and should continue to reward the owners of its shares for the foreseeable future, YouTube. For me and the public account, I'll keep on continue to buying into Nvidia where weaknesses presents itself for the time being, and building it as one of my main players in my portfolio. And let me know down in the comments what you think of this video, YouTube, and give me your opinion on the now confirmed acquisition of ARM, and let me know down in the comments on what's your thoughts on, and are you a Nvidia stockholder, and do you think this is a positive thing for Nvidia with ARM? Let me know, and maybe pop a like and subscribe to the channel. Again, thank you so much for coming to my channel, Invest in Yourself. Again, I'll see you on the flip side. Thank you so much.